Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting some moderate turbulence.
Please remain seated and enjoy the show. Hello.
And welcome to
Moderate Turbulence.
I'm Stuffy Nose Jeremie.
I'm Adele.
Hi Adele, how are you?
Oh, better than you.
You can probably hear it in my voice here on the microphone, but yeah, I'm a little stuffed up, still under the weather. I know our last episode I was a bit under the weather, but it's gotten worse, unfortunately. So this is the sad voice you're going to hear for today's episode. I think Adele's going to do most of the talking.
Yeah, poor Jeremy. I mean, you did get better, but then you got sick again really inconveniently just before you had to fly out, which, as we talked about, not safe. And especially since you were progressively getting more and more congested yesterday. And now waking up this morning, you sound so much worse. So thank goodness you didn't go on a 10-hour flight to a different continent and then have to deal with possible medical situations out there for yourself. So it's always just listen to your body.
Exactly. It would really not be a fun experience to be booked off in another country that's across the Atlantic Ocean. So it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Staying home and getting better. Yeah.
I mean, at least you do speak the language that they speak in London, but it's never like easy, and like dealing with being off work or sick or injured in another country is always such a hassle. And it's like, it makes being sick or injured so much worse.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. So enough about me, and apologies if I do any sniffles. Adele just warned me, try not to sniffle on the microphone. So I'm going to do my best, but that's your advanced warning. So should we get right into it?
Yeah. Let's go through our highs and lows. I mean, again, Jeremy doesn't really have flying highs and lows, but I mean, his low will definitely be that he has not been able to fly for the last 10 days because he's been sick, congested, low energy, just all of those things. And he also did a COVID test, which came out negative yesterday because we're like, what the heck? Why is he so sick and congested and just not getting better? So it's not COVID, but still something that's going around.
So thank you. You've highlighted my low. That's definitely my low.
Doing all the talking here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Do you have any highs and lows? And I do have a high for this week, so I'll get to that after. But let's go for yours first.
All right. Well, I did just come back from a 4-day pairing. I'm leaving again tomorrow on another 4-day pairing. That's why we're recording, to make sure that there is an episode out.
Just for your information, today's Saturday. So this episode will come out on Wednesday. And apologies that the last YouTube episode was a little bit delayed. I'm not sure why, but I had uploaded it to YouTube and it just didn't process for some reason. So the new one's back up. We just watched a little bit of it. So it should be up on YouTube, the last episode.
Yeah. But the podcast did go up like on Spotify and stuff. It's just like, the YouTube just for some reason wasn't there. So you can still watch it there to see all the like reference pics and stuff that we talked about. But yeah, for my last 4-day, so I ended up being with some of the same crew, but then different crew members kind of popped in and out of the flights every flight. Yeah. So for 4 days, every single flight, I had to do a briefing. Never had the same exact crew 2 flights in a row. So that was not necessarily a low, but just kind of like an inconvenience of, and the reality of our job sometimes is if we change crew members, we have to do a briefing. So at the end of the 4 days, some of my crew members who had been there the whole time were like, oh, we know your briefing. We know what you're going to say. We know where your keys are, like for the medical kits that we have on board. We know where the stuff is in the closet. Like we know everything, especially since we hadn't changed aircrafts. It was just different crew members.
Oh, yeah. So, which aircraft were you on for this whole pairing?
The 737.
737. Okay. Yeah. So 4 crew members. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was that was a lot. And then different crew members, of course, some were great and some were not so great. Just one of my biggest issues with working with crew members is when they're lazy and they don't pull their weight. It makes it very difficult for other crew members to work, and it just makes everything just more difficult. So it's like, if you do your job and you do it as it's supposed to, there's going to be no issues. But then when there's one person or two people or even all the crew not doing their job properly, it's just, it's such a drain on everyone else. So that was definitely challenging during the last 4 days, especially it's 4 days and you're working with these people and then on and off, and then you get some good crews, some bad crews. So it's just, you never know what you're going to get if you don't know the crew members. Yeah. So it's a surprise, sometimes a good surprise and sometimes a not so good surprise. Like you say to your participants, the
harder everybody works, the less hard everybody has to work. So basically, if everyone's pulling their weight, then it's going to be a smooth flight. Nobody has to work extra hard to pick up the slack.
Yeah. So, and you feel it, and like, shout out to Alberto, but the last pairing I did with him, of course, he's great. And the two other crew members that we flew with, we just got along so well. Everyone worked hard. Everyone was just like, it was good vibes, good, like morale, and we could joke around with each other and have fun, but we also all trusted each other to get the job done.
Oh, that's
like
always
I had
the best, yeah.
No doubt that the work was getting done in the back. My crew member who would help me in the front was always there, always willing to help me do stuff. Even though that person was really tired, had just come in from like dealing with family emergency and like coming in from a red eye and then coming in from Toronto to Vancouver to then work the flight with us.
Wow.
So that person was really tired. She still worked so hard, and I commended her on how hard she worked and how great she still was with everyone. So it's like, there's no excuse to not work and to not do things properly.
Yeah.
So
you told me about that one, and you really made a point of like, even though you're going through something hard, you kind of leave it at the boarding door, as we say. And when you get on the aircraft, you're ready to go.
Yeah. So yeah, it just shows that like there's, some people who love their job and do it properly, and there's some people who just couldn't care less.
They show up for the paycheck. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is disappointing. But I mean, other than that, I had a pretty good pairing. It was 4 days. It was my first 4 day in a really long time. So that was, it's always hard to be gone for 4 days and 3 different cities, 3 different hotels, 3 different nights.
Yeah.
Different
multiple legs per day. Yeah.
Yeah. Though that wasn't too bad. Like the work time wasn't too bad for this one, but yeah, it's a lot, and it's, but a big high from that pairing was having dinner with my cousin Caitlin. She
listens, right? So hi, Caitlin.
Yeah, I don't know how up to date she is. I don't know when she will listen to this, but she just moved recently, so she's very close to our airport hotel. She lives in Edmonton, and she came to get me, cooked me a beautiful supper. We just had some time to catch up, and it was just really, really nice to have, like, I love seeing friends or family on layovers because it just feels like it's not work.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And another quick highlight, you also got the Edmonton Starbucks mug. Oh no, I've got Montreal because that's where I'm going next month. Montreal, yay. But yeah, you got a new Starbucks mug as well, which is always exciting now.
Yeah, I got another mug, which was on I got it on my second day of the 4 day. So I still had to lug it around like for a few cities and a few like airports and stuff. But another mug added to the collection.
Always good.
Talking about schedules for the next month, we did get our schedules for May yesterday, which was actually one that I was really fearing because I have vacation and I needed some specific days off to just kind of cushion the vacation, which means that I just wanted some like buffer days because when we travel, we travel standby. So it's just, if anything happens, you have to have a plan B, C, D and stuff. But if you're stuck somewhere, you have to make sure you have days to buffer before you go back to work. Because let's say my vacation ends on the 12th. I can't say I'm going to go back to work on the 13th. Because on the 12th, I'm still going to be at my destination, flying back, hopefully. But so I needed some extra days before and after to make sure I could get there. And it's someone's birthday next month. Yeah. So I wanted those days off as well. And got them all. got all the days that I wanted. So that was really good.
Yeah.
Really like a relief. So I have like the breathing room for my vacation to be able to get there and back. Have the days off for Jeremie's birthday. So we can have a day.
A little celebration
yeah.
of some sort.
We don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to have a nice day together. Yeah. So that was another high.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one. That's a good one. For me, I'm going to go back to aviation for my high, but not commercial aviation. We're going to talk about really quickly about the Starship Super Heavy booster. This was the first orbital test launch for SpaceX's Starship Super Heavy booster. It's basically twice as powerful as the Saturn V rocket, which is the rocket that sent astronauts to the moon back in the late 60s, early 70s. This one's twice as powerful. And this was the first time it was actually launching and taking off. A couple little mishaps here and there, but basically SpaceX wanted to clear the tower when it was lifting off and make sure it could actually get off the ground. That was the biggest highlight. It did. It got up to an altitude of about 34 kilometers. Before a couple of the engines weren't working properly, it started cartwheeling a little bit, and then they detonated it, which was pretty spectacular to see as well. But I was the big geek that got up early in the morning to go and watch that live on YouTube and stuff. So, of course, I'm wearing one of my Elon Musk shirts here, Occupy Mars. And so it was really great to see the booster actually get off the ground. They got a lot of great data for that. And that was one of my highs for this week. Well, you knew I was getting up early to watch it and stuff.
Yeah. So that was fun. Jeremie was really excited about it. And
yeah,
I don't know much about that, but Jeremie's really passionate. So
one step closer to eventually, I mean, first stop is the moon. Then they'll establish a base there. And then the next stop, of course, is going to be Mars. And hopefully we'll see that by the end of the decade.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, pretty amazing.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is Manifest. So it's a TV show. Probably heard of it. It's on its 4th season premiering this June. So we had previously watched, I think most, if not all of the first season.
1, yeah.
But then we just stopped watching. I guess maybe that was the only season out, and then we just never restarted it.
We never picked it back up.
Yeah. So we just restarted from the very beginning, and it's on Netflix, so it's super easy to catch up on. But it's, as the title would hint at, there is some slight aviation aspect to it. We're not going to give any spoilers. Don't worry if you do watch it or you want to watch it. We're just going to talk about the little snippets of the show that are related to aviation. So essentially the big premise of the show is there's an aircraft. It's flying from Montego Bay to JFK.
Yeah, to New York's JFK.
And this flight 828, takes off. When they land, they're met by police, military, and they're told it's 5 years later. So they've been gone for 5 years. Their family's been mourning them. A lot has changed, as you could possibly imagine. And so the passengers are trying to figure out what the heck happened.
And they haven't aged a day. So they look like they did. So for example, there's one family where there's a set of twins. One twin left on a previous flight, and then one twin was on this plane that disappeared for 5 years. And so now one is 5 years older and the other is still that same age, 10 years old. So you see some of the conflicts going on there, and it's entertaining, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty good show. It's suspenseful and lots of mystery and stuff. We're going to chat about like a couple little things that we saw. So one thing is, at some point, I don't remember which episode, but one of the episodes in season 1, because there's flashbacks here and there. Of course, you don't get the full story right off the bat. You kind of get snippets here and there and flashbacks throughout the show's running. So one of this flashbacks is you see the door of the aircraft from the inside. And I look at Jeremie, I'm saying, what's that aircraft door? Jeremie's a lot better at recognizing.
I thought it was a 330, or it looked similar to an Airbus 330, 340 door. So yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, what they showed was a single aisle narrow body aircraft in all the other clips. So, conflicting, of course, aviation accuracy, not quite there. Kind of 330. Is a 340 also wide body?
Yeah, 330 and 340 are identical aircraft, except the amount of engines and the range. So
Okay.
330 is 2 engines with a shorter range. 340 was 4 engines, greater range. Yeah.
Okay, so wide body aircraft, so not the same as a narrow body. So, they just picked whatever they wanted for whatever scenes there. There's another scene where, again, with accessing the cargo bay or whatever the heck. So there's someone, we're not going to give any details, but they're like, oh, here, lifts a hatch on the ground in the galley. Go in there and you can go to the cargo.
And then escape out through the landing gear when it comes down.
Catch me if you can.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, that's a little far-fetched. You can't just, there's not a random hatch in the middle of the galley where it's like, do, and off I go into the cargo area so I can escape a different way. It's a little more complicated than that. But overall, I mean, I'm really enjoying watching it. I'd recommend it. Go watch it. It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to
about Manifest?
Yeah, point out?
No, just have fun with it. Obviously it deals a little bit with some supernatural things, having been missing for 5.5 years. So, take it all with a grain of salt, but it's entertainment. So
yeah, recommend to anyone who's looking for something new to watch. 3 seasons are out now. Yeah,
and really quickly, it came out a couple years after MH370 went missing.
Yes.
So there was obviously some parallels of, hey, this aircraft took off and never landed. They never found any wreckage or anything like that from the fictional aircraft in Manifest. And so since it came out a couple years after MH370, we thought, you can definitely see some parallels there with how they looked for it, mourning the loss of family members, even though you don't have any of the remains of the aircraft to physically mourn them, right?
Or answers.
Or any answers, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, watching now and we just talked about MH370 last episode, and then we just randomly started watching Manifest again, and then it hits home again. We're like, oh.
Yeah.
I wonder if any of the families of MH370 would watch Manifest and feel really like
this is
some kind of way.
Sensationalizing it in maybe not the most positive way, but
I'm guessing they probably wouldn't watch Manifest. Yeah.
It hits close to home. Yeah.
Anyways, so finally I'm gonna present Jeremie with a couple stories, like news, aviation stories, dealing with passengers, if you will.
She just likes to rile me up.
So yes, there's a couple stories here to talk about. One is a Blue Jays baseball player's wife flew on United with their 2 children, and she's also pregnant. And the story goes that the flight attendant told that mom to pick up her kids' spilt popcorn on the aircraft. And so the that Blue Jays player, so the husband, seemingly not having traveled with them at that time, tweeted, I think it started with a tweet, how he was appalled. I don't know what the wording was. I can probably find it. So he tweeted, the flight attendant, United, so he tagged United, just made my 22-week pregnant wife traveling with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old get on her hands and knees to pick up the popcorn mess by my youngest daughter. Are you kidding me? With a picture of the kids on the aircraft and popcorn on the floor.
It caused quite the uproar in our aviation community. That's for sure.
Just everyone. Like, he tweeted that, and like, honestly, most of the comments that I saw were on the flight attendant's side, saying, "Well, you're not picking up after your kid." Anyways, all that stuff. What is your first impression when you heard about this?
Well, first of all, I don't. Okay. It reminds me back when I used to be a server at a restaurant, and then you'd always you'd know the families that come in, and you're like, oh no, it's going to be a disaster when they leave, because you could just feel it. You're like, obviously the kids are not disciplined. They're throwing things around, huge mess. And they give the baby a bunch of, what are they called? Soda biscuits, like premium plus soda crackers, whatever. And then all the cracker crumbs go everywhere, things like that. And you're like, oh, and it's not acceptable in a restaurant. It's not acceptable on a plane. we as flight attendants are there as safety professionals. Yes, we provide a service and we want to make sure it's a pleasant flight for everybody. But first and foremost, we're safety professionals. To expect us to babysit and clean up after your kids is not in our job description.
Yes, definitely. However, I think it's the interpretation of course, we don't know exactly what happened. We don't know how the interaction with that specific flight attendant with that pregnant woman was. We don't know, was there a previous interaction? Was there like, hey, like, could you maybe make sure your kids don't make too much of a mess? Or I don't know, whatever the interaction was the flight attendant super aggressive or mean towards them? Was the mother super dismissive and just like, let my kids do whatever they want?
Yeah.
You clean it up
You'll
after.
clean it up later or something.
Or it'll
know.
get cleaned up. Like, we don't know the full story.
Yeah.
However, I think it was mostly like the fact that she was made to clean up after her kids on the flight. So that, to me, that also confused me because I feel personally, I've never asked passengers to clean up after them.
No,
and
me
I don't
neither.
think I would, depending on the mess, right? I feel like someone spills wine on their seat. I'm there to help them wipe it down, like give them some napkins, wipe it down as much as possible. And of course, it gets like fully cleaned as soon as we land at our next destination.
Yeah.
It depends on the situation, I guess, depending on this story. Were the kids too unruly? Were they not being supervised? Was it bad parenting? What the situation was, we don't know. To me, it was her being made to clean it up. That's a weird situation. Like, I don't know how that happened. I don't know
How that interaction was.
How that, because I feel like unless there was a previous interaction or a warning or a, hey, could you please not spill popcorn everywhere kind of thing. And then was the interpretation from the mother, I have to clean it up now and like get on my hands and knees, or like, we don't know. So it's just a weird thing. But honestly, all the comments that I've seen, or 90% of the comments that I've seen on Twitter, on Instagram, this has been reposted by so many media outlets.
It really took off.
Like flight attendants, like Narcity, Chicks in the Office, like everyone's been reposting and talking about this. Because it's a famous family. It's a Major League Baseball player, and like it happens to be the sister of a famous singer as well. So it's just like, it's really involved in like celebrity and famous people. And it seems also a touch of entitlement by the people who are involved. And 90% of people are saying it's the family's fault. Like,
clean up after yourself type thing?
Yeah, clean up after your kids. You're the parent. You're the one who needs to clean up after them. It's not a flight attendant's job to do that, which essentially, yes. But I'm kind of like scared to take a side one way or the other because I don't know the full interaction. But also, the tweet by the guy is also... It's a little aggressive and a little too much because...
Yeah, it, like you said, it has that entitlement to it. Like, oh my God, like, how can they expect her to do that? Well, you know, if you're the one making the mess, you know, like, what? I mean, there's so many expressions going through my head right now, but basically, if you can't act appropriately, then don't. If your kid can't eat popcorn appropriately without making a huge mess,
not a good
give
flight
them
snack.
popcorn. Yeah, I mean, little things like that. So like, use your brain a little bit more. Would I ever make anybody get on their hands and knees and clean up? No, I wouldn't.
Standing over them, you clean up that popcorn. Yeah. Like, of course not.
No, that would never happen. I would probably just be disappointed. I would, clean whatever I could. And then of course, now it's going to be an extra time for the groomers when the groomers are grooming the aircraft after the flight. Like, your actions are going to cause a snowball effect and make it harder on everybody else. So be a proper passenger and, don't, again, bring snacks for your kids. That's great. But use appropriate snacks that aren't going to make a huge, huge mess.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we'll see if any more story of that will come out. I don't think so. Like, I feel like the family involved is probably a little embarrassed by their their tweet because everybody's just been turning on them, and I think it kind of backfired on them. But we'll see what happens. But here's another story that I saw as well.
Oh, here we go.
So this story, essentially, the title of the news article that I saw is "A Woman Says She Was Kicked Off a Flight for Having a Mimosa, and TikTok Reaction is Split." So essentially, I read the article, and she was traveling from Portland, Oregon to Las Vegas on Alaska Airlines. Not that it really matters, but she had a drink and a half, she says, before the flight, boarded the flight, needed to use the washroom, and then couldn't figure out something about the light or something in the washroom. So she asked the flight attendant. And then the supposed interaction with the flight attendant made it so that this passenger in question was removed from the flight for being drunk.
Wow.
So the flight attendant's interpretation of that passenger's actions were she was slurring her words, unable to use the lavatory properly, and so on and so forth. So the flight attendants made the decision to remove that passenger for being intoxicated. And then that person, of course, went to TikTok and took to social media to complain and say, how is that possible? Blah, blah, blah. So what do you think?
Well, the decision to remove a passenger from a plane, I mean, that's kind of like the last straw, right? And it's a difficult one. And again, one that I've talked about here that I've had to make somewhat recently. And it's not something that should come lightly. When it happened on my flight, I discussed it with the other flight attendants that had interacted with the individual, and then discussed it briefly with the pilots. And they said, your call, but we support you no matter what. And now in this case, it's really easy after the fact to say, well, I wasn't drunk. But again, we weren't there in the moment. We weren't there knowing if she was stumbling around or if she was fumbling with the lock mechanism of the lavatory. We don't know. Did she really have 1.5 mimosas or whatnot? Did she actually have 1.5 bottles of Prosecco with a splash of orange juice? I don't know. So without more context, it's really hard to make a call here. Again, it's not an easy decision to remove somebody from a flight, though. I'm telling you that from firsthand experience.
Plus, always let's reiterate the fact that flight attendants, cabin crew were there for safety. And if we see a passenger come on board smelling like alcohol, slurring their words, stumbling around, not able to work certain very easy mechanisms on the aircraft, it really is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
And what we're looking when people are boarding is, are these passengers fit to fly? So if they're acting a certain way, and that person also, part of the story I didn't mention, or maybe I did, sorry, I forget, but she told the flight attendant, I had a drink or a couple drinks, a drink and a half at the bar. So she admitted that she had
She had consumed alcohol.
she had drinks. And so the flight attendant also, perhaps hearing that, was like, oh, you had drinks, you're acting this way, and you're possibly slurring your words. So that may have also influenced the flight attendant's decision. You had drinks and you're acting this way. Well, I know you're drunk right now then. So I don't know. But again, we're there for safety. And if we're seeing red flags pop up as you're boarding the aircraft, as you're trying to just getting settled in, if you're just trying to use the lavatory. Also, who comes on board and says, yeah, I just had 2 drinks at the bar? Also kind of a red flag because
definitely.
Who says that?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to come on board and say, oh yeah, I had 2 coffees at Starbucks. It's like, it's the way people act when they're drunk or their inhibitions are limited that really tell that they're tipsy or getting to the point of getting drunk.
Also, public service announcement, go use the lavatories in the airport before boarding the plane. When you have to go up the wrong way of an aisle because you need to use the lavatory during boarding, it's inconvenient for everybody. Use the one in the airport before getting on the plane. Just trust me on this one. You've got more room to maneuver. It's not as cramped and you're not slowing anything down. Please, please, please go before you go.
Yeah. And I think that pretty much wraps up this week.
I think so. Yeah.
So remember, if you're out there flying,
always be nice to your flight attendants
because they might have to save your butt one day.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Roxy.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We have new episodes every Wednesday. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Moderate Turbulence on Instagram, at Mod Turbulence on Twitter, and follow us individually on Instagram at HuffyJ and at La Delvie. Thank you.